So everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. This is Monday night reading. This is something that we do the first Monday of the month for top 3 book workshop or top 3 author club members. And tonight we are featuring 2 author club members. I'm so excited, Julie Ellis and Amanda Crowell. And Amanda, I always feel like I'm mispronouncing your last name. Am I mispronouncing it?
It's fine. Everyone says, well, I don't know. Did you say Crowell?
No.
It's Crowell.
I did say it. I practiced.
She got it right.
Well done. Well done.
Okay, awesome. So this is Monday night reading. And I got this idea because I work primarily with nonfiction authors in this space, but my other life is fiction authors. And fiction authors always get to do readings, and nonfiction authors very rarely get to do. I can see Chris shaking his head. Chris probably didn't had a book came out and probably didn't get to do a reading, or not. Okay, probably 0. So that's why we do this, because nonfiction authors deserve the readings. They have great stories. And so I want to showcase nonfiction authors in that way. So tonight, Julie and Amanda will be doing a reading from their upcoming books. And then we'll have just a short little Q&A. One thing I want to point out to you is that in top 3 book workshop, we have really strict rules about feedback. So the rules about feedback are, I'm the only person who ever gives constructive criticism and no one else does. And tonight we don't do any of that. This is just a night where we give love. So in the chat, you'll start to see people. So a lot of my alums and current cohort are here. You'll see people chatting with, this resonates with me. You'll see people putting lines that they like, something they love. We encourage you to join in with that and support these authors tonight. So both Amanda and Julie have been in top 3 author club for a while, hacking away every day, little by little on their books. And now they're about to be out in the world. And I could not be more proud of you two. So Laura, we're gonna start with Julie. And if you would introduce Julie for us.
I'd love to. Julie Ellis is an executive coach with a unique experience and expertise stemming from 25 years of working first in the corporate world and then as a leading Canadian entrepreneur. She is a co-founder of award-winning company Mabel's Labels, one of Canada's greatest small business success stories. Since starting her own coaching business in 2016, Julie Ellis & Company, she has become a sought-after speaker and trainer, her keynotes and workshops motivating her audiences to achieve big, gorgeous goals, the name of her upcoming book. As a professionally certified coach with the International Coaching Federation, Julie works directly with bold leaders, propelling them to unlock their talents, leading to accelerated success. She advises entrepreneurs through the Hamilton-based Innovation Factory and Halton-based Haltech since 2019. She's also chair of the board at Angel One Investment Network, one of the most active angel investor groups in Canada. AJ?
Yay, impressive, Julie. I see Julie almost every day in sprints toiling away at her book. And so Julie, I want you to set this up for everybody. Tell us again, it's Big Gorgeous Goals, and tell us, when does this book come out?
The book will come out on June 7th. And so it's up for sale now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and all your favorite booksellers. And I'm super excited about it.
So everybody here, I would love if it fits your budget, especially if you want to support these authors. And if you like what you hear, you'll be seeing links in the chat so you can get your own copy of their books, but also connect with them online, etc. So Julie, Big Gorgeous Goals, tell us, what is the core message of this book?
The core message is really about that in order to chase big goals, we have to lean into our discomfort. We have to get comfortable with being uncomfortable. And you need to lean into creating some white open space that will allow you to have the room to start chasing these big, bold things.
White open space. That's so interesting. What do you mean by white open space?
That we spend our lives so busy. We say yes to so many things, and that we need to say no to things that fill our calendars and our time and just make us busy. And it keeps us in a sort of a safe and box checking mode. And that in order to go for something really big, and in fact, to dream it up and figure out how to chase it, you have to create white space in your life so that you can dream.
So you realize how compatible your book is with Amanda's book, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
I love that. I love that. And so who do you think is your ideal reader for this book? Who needs it?
I think that the reader is women leaders who want to boldly chase their big, gorgeous goals and to overcome their fear or resistance that's holding them back from really going for it.
Nice. And then if they read the book, what's promised to them?
The promise is to pull the curtain back on big, gorgeous goals and bold women, pushing us out of the small box that we find ourselves in.
Okay, so I love that. And I wanted you to set up now, what is the excerpt you'll be reading tonight?
So the excerpt is a story about a big, gorgeous goal that we set in my business. And sort of what falls out of that tells you what happened, and then kind of goes into a couple of lessons that come out of the story and things that I learned from it.
Wonderful. And I remember this story so well from when you were working on a speech, and I'm so glad it made it into the book. It's very inspiring. So everybody, we're all going to mute, and then Julie will read. And when she's done, we will have a little short follow-up Q&A. Here you go, Julie.
Okay, thanks. One of our wildest ideas at Mabel's Labels was born of a frequent request from moms. I have a kid going to school or camp or daycare tomorrow, and I need labels today. Even with next day shipping, we could not deliver the labels on time. This was definitely one of the downsides of having a mail order business. Despite providing world-class customer service, we would always be at the mercy of delivery agents. And so a big goal was born: to make a cute, durable label that could be sold at retail outlets like Target and could be personalized on the fly. That felt like a lofty goal. Up to this point, we had been printing custom labels in our own factory, located inside our offices in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. We had developed processes, procedures, and our own in-house built software, and we efficiently created labels that were pretty much indestructible. But to sell into big retailers, we would need to have labels mass produced. First, we had some serious arts and crafts to do. We needed a prototype to show our suppliers how we envisioned the labels working. History had taught us that our ideas often pushed our suppliers into new territory, and we were always careful to be as clear as possible with them. So off we went to create handmade prototypes. Then we would investigate production. With our prototypes in hand, we attended printing trade shows and showed our samples around, looking for someone who could make them. We worked our way through our list of suppliers to see if they could introduce us to anyone who could produce our labels. And we spent a ton of time investigating all the options online. We finally concluded that our labels could not be made in North America. All of our experts told us to look at factories in China. This was a huge step away from what we knew so well. One of my co-founders had a background in the printing business, and another had learned a ton about printing while running our factory. Over the years, we had built a solid network of experts that we relied on. We felt certain that we had the fundamentals to get this project done. But going overseas to make labels across many time zones and with a language barrier, this felt more than a little intimidating. We decided not to focus on those fears. Instead, we drafted a project plan. Step 1, select factories to make samples. A few months later, we had our first samples in hand. And then with a great connection and a wee bit of luck, we landed a meeting at Walmart Canada to talk about placement in their back to school setup. On a cold and snowy January day, full of adrenaline and hope, we told the buyers our story. We were moms who started a business in the basement, developed a celebrity following, and became a social media powerhouse. They, in turn, told us that back to school was already closed. They weren't sure how they would fit us in. We left the meeting feeling a little deflated, and then we bided our time. After a week that felt like forever, we finally got the call. We want to put you in our back to school area, and we want to include you all year in our stationery department. We hung up the phone and did a happy dance. This news was all we had hoped for. But gradually, our dance moves slowed, and then they came to a full stop. To sell products into Walmart, we were going to need much more than our samples. We needed finished products, and we needed to deliver them in less than 6 months. We knew we had a ton of work to do to make this happen, and we weren't even sure how to get started. Another terrifying prospect, the cost of being unable to deliver on this date was huge. Walmart was well known for charging penalties if you didn't deliver on time. Worse, if we didn't meet the deadline, we would miss the back to school window and be stuck with an enormous number of labels, with no chance of selling them and the risk of a hit to our reputation. We had to deliver those labels on time. So what did we do? Instead of giving into the fears, we dreamed bigger. We referred back to our project plan and jumped on that task list. We reviewed, revised, and built our plan and realized that we needed to visit the factories that had provided us the samples in the hope that one of them would be the right fit to partner with us. We booked flights, got visas, and hopped on a plane, all within a few weeks. By the end of February, one of my business partners and I were on the ground in China. We didn't know the language. We didn't know where we were going, and we had no idea if we would find a factory who could fill our order. But we kept putting one foot in front of the other, purposefully remaining confident that we would get the job done. After several mishaps, touring multiple different options, we found a factory we were happy to work with. We used the company of a Canadian we had befriended on our trip to do quality control and assurance. We shipped the labels across the water, then across our vast country. We packed them up and prepared them for the back to school season. Most importantly, we delivered the product to Walmart on time. Over the next couple of years, we grew that business to $1 million in revenue. The journey had its ups and downs, and I am immensely proud of the work we did on that product line. Even years later, cruising the stationery section at Walmart Canada and seeing the labels there pleases me. The 10%, be bold. Looking back, I can see so many things that could have gone wrong. We were making a new product on a scale we had not yet tackled, in a country entirely foreign to us, and with a factory we had no history with. But we had dreamed up a bold goal. It inspired us, and we pushed hard to make it happen. We had to make it work. So we figured it out, and we accepted help along the way. We used our network to gain introductions, which led to more connections than we could have imagined. We cast a wide net. When we heard no, we asked, why not? We had a big, gorgeous goal. This is the kind of goal that's so big, it can scare the pants off you. But once you dream it up, you know you must make it happen. When you have such a goal, it can be helpful to remember world domination is a full-time job. Sometimes you may need to tell yourself that every few minutes. As we did, you may experience some luck along the way, but there will be tons of hard work too. And it may come with a difficult learning curve. So adopt a bold mindset that you will do it no matter what. And then learn to distinguish between what will take you there and what gets in the way. Because here's what I know today. There are two kinds of goals. One, to-do list goals. You do these and then scratch them off the list. They're often outlined as SMART or the like, so they can be easily measured. They regularly appear on performance review forms. They make logical sense. Two, big, gorgeous goals. Going after these goals feels like reaching for the stars. People may tell you that achieving them is not possible. These goals are exhilarating and often irrational. Pursuing a big, gorgeous goal will propel you to the next level of your business or your life. Ask yourself, so what if I reach for the stars and only get halfway there? What happens then? If I land on the moon instead, what would that be like? The 90%, create space for the magic. We sometimes struggle to set big, gorgeous goals because we are tied up in the mundane. Ticking items off a list can be so satisfying and motivating, but those little chicken scratches can perpetually entice us into small thinking. We prioritize the treadmill of managing our inboxes and our to-do list, feeling comfortable in that safe space. But if we stay there too long, we forget about the thrill of the unknown. Think about the unknown for a minute. What holds you back from going toward it? Fear is a major factor, and with it comes resistance. Once resistance is in play, you may feel really stuck. Now, I know that constantly living in the unknown can be stressful and tiring. Continually surfing a learning curve, which you will always feel like you're doing when you're building a business, is incredibly difficult. You feel off balance. You never know what will come next. But instead of allowing this to erode your confidence, you need to lean into it, experimenting with different ways your goal can turn out and continuing on a growth path. You've got to learn to say no and get out of the weeds. Learn the strategic no. Let's talk about saying no. We say no all the time. No, I'm not ready for. No, I'm not good enough for. No, I don't know how to do that. And on and on. We say no because our fears hold us back from achieving our true worth. Saying no in this way is inadvertently saying yes to things that fill your time and your calendar and inboxes too, but they don't move you closer to your goal. Or perhaps you default to saying yes. We all like to be a part of things. We like to say yes, helping others, staying connected, filling our schedules with our essential activities feels so good. And we are really busy people. It has become a societal norm to brag about how busy we keep ourselves. In fact, we're so busy, we often don't get to the important work. We might even lean on our busyness as an excuse to avoid moving on our big, gorgeous goals. You need to say no in order to focus on the work that truly grows you, because make no mistake, your big, gorgeous goals require white space on your calendar and in your brain. You need time to think, time to reflect and dream. To create this space, you need to strategically say no. You can do this kindly, of course, and with the knowledge that your time is a finite commodity. But especially when you're growing your business, saying no can be difficult. You want to seize every opportunity, but the reality is you need to take on fewer projects and do them well, so well that they become prime examples of how to do things. One of our challenges at Mabel's Labels was in how to choose the winning horses. We always felt as if we had more opportunities than we could take on, and we lamented it. We hashed and rehashed the options. In fact, we started the business with just one type of label. Then we added options for more shapes, colors, pictures, fonts. We saw an endless range of products that we could create and personalize so that with more choice to meet their tastes and needs, parents' lives could be easier. When we launched our full color labels, moving away from the single colors with white print that had been our offering until then, it opened up many possibilities for adding on. Carving an achievable path was important to us. We wanted each project to be ambitious and something we knew we could succeed at. Over time, we realized that if we chose fewer projects and did them with excellence, good things happened. That product launch, execution was great, product quality was high, production processes were in place. We could sell it and win. And so we did.
Awesome. How did that feel to read that?
It felt good. Felt good. I feel like I have to watch the words in the story because I do use it in my speech and I tell it, you alter it a little bit, right?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. But I love the extra detail that can be afforded by having it written in the book.
Yes. Yeah. You need the extra detail because we can't see you, right?
Yeah.
Unlike when you're speaking. So, Julie, I'm so thrilled that you actually wrote this book. What inspired you you wrote this speech that could have been enough?
I know.
So why the book?
I backed into this book. So one of the things that happened to me after we sold the business was I got caught in a tough place between grief and gratitude. And I needed to have some time to grieve the business that I wasn't with anymore. But I didn't want to appear ungrateful for achieving the entrepreneurial dream. And so I really wrestled with that for a while, years, in fact, and slowly started telling that story, and it resonated with people. And so from there, I ended up working some of those pieces into a workshop I did. And then I went and got speaker training and built a keynote. And then I wrote the book. So it sort of kept growing, I think, the possibility for the content. And I kept sort of making it fuller and more rounded. And so that's what led me down the path of the book.
So what's the change you hope to see in the world, because it will soon exist there?
I think that we all owe it to ourselves to chase something big and beautiful, whatever that means to you. And it will be different for all of us. And I just think that we can't play our whole lives from a safe place. We will miss out.
Do you feel like this book of yours is one of your big, gorgeous goals?
Definitely. I never thought I'd write a book.
Really?
No.
And you did. And it's out on June 7th.
I know. It's crazy.
So what do you think you're going to do next? I mean, do you keep a list of big, gorgeous goals you're going to pursue next?
Well, right now, what I want to pursue is making this successful. So that, to me, that's what this big, gorgeous goal. So once I thought writing the book was the hard part, and I'm not diminishing the work that goes into writing it, but the actual process of birthing it and letting it live, breathe, and grow, I think is equally as big. And so that's really the big, gorgeous goal for me now.
Well, I'm glad that you recognize that, because, building readership is a multi-year process. So it sounds like you've got that. You're ready to go for that.
Hopefully. Probably not, but you know what? I'm going to make a plan, and I'm going to keep pushing, and I'll get there.
So let me ask you one more question. What is your favorite chapter in this book?
My favorite chapter, I think, is chapter 3. And it's like, I have a fascination with the intersection of luck and hard work. And I think it's really easy to diminish your hard work to, oh, we were just lucky. And so I tackle that a little bit in the chapter, and it just gets from it talks about that and gets to like the mechanics of a big, gorgeous goal. And I think, one of the things that I learned there are 16 women that I interviewed whose stories also appear in this book. And one of the things I learned from them is invariably, and the 10 and 90 comes from this, it's like an iceberg. You see people who do amazing things, and you see 10%. The 90%, the systems that sustain us, the people who we work with, who support us, the decisions we make, is it efficient? Can we delegate? All of those things aren't seen. But everybody who does big things has a system. And so there's these dueling pieces of systemization and dreaming big.
I love that. The mechanics of big, gorgeous goals. Now we all want to read chapter 3.
There you go.
Yeah. So everybody, Julie, Laura will put the link up again in the chat if it fits your budget to support Julie with a pre-order. Pre-orders are really helpful for authors, because just a behind the scenes thing here, especially with Amazon, getting pre-orders, make sure that there are enough books on launch day. You wouldn't think that would be necessarily a thing, but it is. So get your hands on this copy today to help Julie with pre-orders. So Julie, if we have time at the end, I want to talk to both you and Amanda about the little bit about the writing process that you went through. But thank you so much. We're all so excited, and we couldn't be more proud of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. Okay, so Laura, and I neglected to introduce Laura Stone, so I want to do that. Laura Stone is our Dean of Students at Top 3 Book Workshop and our very own Dallas, Texas cheerleader, although now we have to say Plano. Can we still say Dallas?
Sure.
How about Texas?
Either is fine. I accept both.
So Laura, go ahead and please introduce Amanda for us.
I'd be happy to. Amanda Crowell. I get it right? Dr. Amanda Crowell is a cognitive psychologist, speaker, author, and the creator of the Great Work Journals. Amanda's TED Talk, TEDx Talk, 3 Reasons You Aren't Doing What You Said You Would Do has received more than 1 million views and has been featured on TED's Ideas blog and TED Shorts. Her ideas have also been featured on NPR, Al Jazeera, The Wall Street Journal, Quartz at Work, and Thrive Global. Amanda lives in New Jersey with her husband, 2 adorable kids, and a remarkable Newfie Poo named Ruthie. She spends her days educating future teachers and coaching accidental entrepreneurs about how to make progress on their great work. And I'll put a link to her book in the chat. AJ?
Hey, Amanda.
Hi.
So your book started out, first you have the Great Work Journal, and that's where this started and then evolved into a book. Can you just share a little bit about that evolution?
Yeah. So I have a lot of expertise in pretty straightforward time management. And so I created the Great Work Journals, which used to be called the Align Time Journals for anybody who's here. They're now called the Great Work Journals officially. And I put them out into the world and people really liked them, but they had a lot of questions. And I was sort of surprised by the number of questions that they had. So I thought, this is also straightforward. No, it was not. It was not straightforward. And I realized as I was telling them how to use it and why it mattered and the ins and outs and research and all the things that I had kind of discovered in the last many decades of being a cognitive psychologist and a coach. And I realized that I needed to write this book.
Yeah, I agree that you needed to write it. It's a great book.
Well,
So Amanda, who is your reader? Who do you think who did you write it for and who do you think needs it the most?
yeah. So I think of it as having sort of 2 groups of people who need it. The people like myself, overachievers who are just super exhausted, and who prioritized expectations and meeting demands over what I wanted to do and how I wanted to do it. That's a really big group of us. And then there's a group of people who I sort of discovered on the comments of my TED Talk. People say you shouldn't go read the comments on the internet, but my comments are just lovely. And a lot of people were talking about how procrastination and perfectionism was keeping them from even getting started, even if they weren't really overwhelmed. So it's sort of a pep talk for both of these groups that there is another way.
I love that. And I don't know if you noticed, but you started to talk about who the reader is, and then you said we and me.
Oh, yeah.
So it's because that's relevant because so much of your own story is in here, just as Julie's story is in her book. So what is the core message that you share in this book that you realized in your own journey?
Yeah. So I think the core message is this. It seems like when you look out into the world across the expanse of successful people, it seems like the only opportunity for success is hustle, to work just way past your comfort, stretch, and exhaustion deep into burnout. And the core message here is that there is another way, that there is a way that you can do great work that really matters to you and not sacrifice everything else, like your health or your happiness or your relationships.
And for people who read the book, what's promised to them by the time they finish it?
Yeah. So I believe that if you do what's in this book, that you will, in fact, have a lifetime of great work ahead of you.
That is a bold promise, and I love it. That's
yes,
great.
because yes. Thank you. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, you should leave it there.
Okay.
So set up the excerpt that you're going to share with us tonight.
Yeah, so it doesn't need too much excerpt because it's the introduction to the book.
It's a great introduction. So I'm gonna let you go ahead and get started, and then we'll do some chatting afterwards.
Sounds good. Thank you. What am I going to do? As the other 70 people left the webinar, Beatrice waited silently. Finally, as the last person logged out, Beatrice asked her simple question. What am I going to do? She said again, but this time mostly to herself. Beatrice had just attended an hour-long presentation focused on how to do the work that matters the most to you, what I call great work. One of the activities we do is the project audit. It's a rough assessment of how many projects an attendee is trying to cram into their life at one time. The numbers can be staggering. 15 or 20 projects is on the low end, and some discover that they're trying to manage 50 or 60 different projects at the same time. The project audit regularly stops people in their tracks. When you're juggling 60 projects, it becomes clear why the most important ones aren't gaining traction. Beatrice, it turns out, was keeping 45 projects running. She was running her own coaching business, managing the back end of her husband's creative agency, renovating her house in preparation to sell it, and taking care of her aging mother. Though she was exhausted, she was keeping these projects afloat through sheer force of will. What she wasn't keeping afloat was her great work. Great work is my term for the work that matters the most to you. We often think of it as our life's purpose, and sadly, it's usually the first thing to go when we get busy or life becomes complicated. This is certainly what happened to Beatrice. She was not writing her book or launching her group coaching program, two projects that excited her and would have taken her coaching practice to the next level. Beatrice knew that if she could just get her ideas organized, she could move from one-to-one coaching to a one-to-many coaching model. And this would pave the way for more impact and more money, two things she badly wanted. And yet, there simply wasn't time. Beatrice understood that she wasn't prioritizing her great work, but she felt that she had no choice. Everything else felt entirely non-negotiable. Everybody needs me, Beatrice explained. My husband can't stay on top of his company without me. My brothers and sisters live out of state, and we need to sell our house because we cannot afford it. And now there's a pandemic, which has made it all worse. And I am at my wit's end. In fact, the only thing I can let go of is my great work. And I really don't want to do that, but I don't see another option. Beatrice, a beautiful, fierce, powerful woman who is admired by all who meet her, put her face in her hands in despair. I'm so tired, Amanda. I just don't think I can do all of this. She looked up at me, and I got the sense that she would be crying if she was sure that she could stop. This is one time when the webinar format just did not hold up to an in-person event. I wanted to put my hand on her shoulder and really look into her eyes, but instead I leaned forward and looked directly into the camera. Beatrice, I promise you don't have to do it all. There is another way. Beatrice puts her heart and soul into everything she does. She is driven and focused and a great coach. The problem is she spreads herself too thinly. She struggles to say no when someone else needs help. She rarely delegates. And because she doesn't want other people to know how hard things have gotten, she almost never asks for help. Beatrice is deeply committed to her family and to growing her coaching business. There is no question that if she knew how to do it all, she would. And I know exactly how she feels. I created the Great Work Method because I simply couldn't keep up with everything I had to do, let alone find time for what I wanted to do. I began to worry that I would die before I wrote the books that were calling me from the inside, delivered the workshops that I knew would help other people, or spoke at least once on a really big stage. All of this so I could respond to a tsunami of emails and attend a lot of meetings. I began to have an existential crisis and wondered, would I go through my whole life and never get to my great work? I thought that if I could just work harder, be more efficient, and stop procrastinating, then I could finally get to what mattered. This was how I earned all of my success, after all. There was no way I could afford to pay for college. So I went over and above in high school to get a full scholarship to a local private university. I worked harder and faster than most other people and earned my PhD from an Ivy League school in 4 years, where the average completion timeline is 7 years. I moved my family halfway across the country to pursue a prestigious postdoctoral fellowship while caring for an infant and finishing my dissertation. At every turn, I worked as hard as was humanly possible, and I succeeded beyond anything that was ever expected of me. And yet, succeeding through brute force turned out to be a losing battle long term. I couldn't stay ahead of my own ambition and drive. I was my own worst enemy. The more efficient I got, the more I took on. The more I took on, the more exhausted I became. And suddenly, I was back to seeking even more efficiency. There is an inconvenient but incontrovertible truth here. There will always be more than we could, should, and must do than there will be time to do it. This truth found me cycling between two settings. I was either striving so hard on so many projects that I drove myself to the brink of exhaustion, or so desperately trying to recover from overworking and burnout that I slipped into patterns of avoidance and procrastination. I call this the productivity roller coaster of doom, and it's no fun at all. To stabilize my own experience, I turned to my obsessive researcher tendency, honed from decades as a cognitive psychologist, drawing ideas from across traditional time management methods, brain science, mindset research, burnout prevention tactics, change management processes, and behavioral change theories. I experimented on myself relentlessly. Out of this process of trial and error came a potent combination of research, strategies, and tactics that allowed me first to slow the productivity roller coaster of doom and eventually get off entirely. I no longer worked every night and weekend. Instead, I painted, napped, played with my kids, and read novels again. I was more energized and less distracted, which made my work better and me happier. By doing less and making time for fun, I became without a doubt a better writer, coach, educator, and not to mention a better friend, mother, and partner. It worked so well, in fact, that I started sharing these ideas with my clients. Now, my clients are universally high achievers, passionately seeking to make a difference in the world with their work. They, like me, were daunted by the sheer number of things that they were already doing, let alone the endless projects, collaborations, and responsibilities they could take on. And, like me, they needed support and encouragement to shift focus to their health, happiness, and their great work. I was happy to discover that the Great Work method worked for them too. One client finally completed all of her licensing paperwork and exam in 3 months, a project that had been hanging over her head for 10 years. Several clients found the courage to start their own businesses after years of waiting to be ready. Many of them wrote books, launched podcasts, started blogging, and discovered that sharing their unique perspective felt wonderful. They discovered that what had felt impossible was, in fact, more possible than they could have hoped. And all of this happened while they felt better, more grounded, joyful, and invigorated. This is because great work flows better when we are happier and healthier. After discovering that these ideas worked not just for me, but also for my clients, I crafted a series of journals to create the habits outlined in this book. The Great Work journals are used by people around the world to create healthier habits, build businesses, and finish their education. The demand has been strong, which leads me to believe that we are not alone. You and I, lots of us are desperate to finally get to our great work in a way that doesn't require that we sacrifice everything else. Beatrice and I spoke about 4 times over the next year. She agreed to be part of a pilot group for the Great Work Journal, and she checked in with me regularly to let me know how it was going. There were hard moments, like when Beatrice told her husband that he needed to find someone else to do his books, and relieving moments when she found a woman at her church who would take her mother for walks a couple of times a week, and exciting moments like when she launched a small cohort of her group coaching program. She's doing her great work, and she's not sacrificing everything else. Beatrice told me, I'm happier than I've been in a long time. One of the things I hear most from people who have had success with this method is how much better they feel almost immediately. And even though the impact can be felt, it's still extremely difficult to convince people to give it a try. The promise that you can do the work that matters without sacrificing everything else can feel like a dangerous lie. Many of us have spent most of our adult lives being rewarded for hard work that goes above and beyond, receiving compliments and praise for our hustle, commitment, and willingness to go all out for the team. It can be very confronting to hear that our success at all costs work style might be optional, even when that same work style is crushing our spirit, delaying our great work, and harming our health. Michael, a lawyer at a mid-sized law firm in Texas, heard me talking about time management and burnout prevention on a podcast a few years ago. He was working around the clock trying to make partner, and hearing these ideas made him outright angry. He shared his reaction with me in an email. It just felt like a fairy tale. I knew in my bones that to succeed, I had to work harder than anyone else. I had to show up early, work late, and meet every opportunity with enthusiasm. I thought that burnout was for losers, people who couldn't hack it, people who didn't have what it took to succeed. I thought about that interview a lot over the last couple of years. I can't tell you when I switched from being angry to considering it might be a little bit right, but I do remember when I decided to take it seriously. I fell asleep on the couch in my office for 2 days in a row when I was working on a case. When I finally dragged myself home on that third day, I discovered that the water had been running in my bathroom for 2 days. I must have wandered off while I was done shaving. I was probably on my phone responding to email. Water had flowed out of the bathroom and more than halfway into my bedroom, ruining the carpet. I could already smell mold. I sat down on the bed in my crumpled suit and just stared at the ruined floor, too exhausted even to wrap my head around who to call. Then my phone rang. It was a partner at the law firm telling me she'd found an error in my work and I would have to redo it. I heard your voice in my head right then saying that even when we think we can do the impossible, the day will come where we realize we haven't really done it. We've made mistakes on things that matter, ignored things until they blew up on us, and let our health get so bad that we had to stop everything to recover. That was my rock bottom. I looked up your website, saw the journal you made, and I've been using it ever since. Michael wrote this email to me after he had made some serious progress. He took a vacation for the first time in 3 years, thankfully returning home just before everyone got locked down for COVID. Ended his workday by 7 and began exercising more regularly. Basically, he made space for his health and happiness, in addition to accomplishment and success. This is Michael. Imagine my surprise when I heard you on a podcast for lawyers recently. You were talking about how great work tends to flow better when we're happy and healthy. And you know what? I think you're right. It wasn't until I had gotten those crazy hours under control and figured out how to take better care of myself that I started to take on pro bono work again. I suddenly remembered why I'd become a lawyer in the first place. Michael was not, should I stop there? Do I have time to keep going?
Please don't stop.
Okay. Michael was not alone in his initial rejection of the great work method. I get plenty of pushback. Most of the advice you'll hear about productivity aligns with Michael's experience. According to the world at large, the keys to success are hard work, commitment, willpower, and discipline. And these things do matter. You will struggle to be successful if you won't work hard, aren't committed, and don't have the willpower and discipline to keep going in the face of challenge. But these are not usually the struggles of those of us yearning to do great work. Our problem is on the opposite end of the spectrum. For us, it's very easy to take things like willpower and discipline too far. We hustle beyond the point of healthy. We push through our natural breaking points until we are thoroughly burned out, and we say yes to so many things that the important ones get put on hold. It's hard to deny that people can be very successful by pushing as hard as they can and dominating through hustle. There are examples of this everywhere. But what my clients and I have discovered has also become hard to deny. There is another way. You can do great work that feels good, prioritizes what matters to you, and maintains space for your happiness and health, all while meeting your most important obligations and responsibility. This book provides a blueprint for this other way. I'm here to promise you that you can figure out what your great work is, align your time to it, and make remarkable progress without overworking. And all three parts of that promise matter. Making progress without a clear idea of where you're headed is an exercise in futility and can be a source of great frustration. At the same time, it doesn't help to figure out what your great work is if you don't move it forward. And it's definitely not worth it to pursue great work at the expense of your happiness and health. Now, in order to experience the benefits of the great work method, you will have to change how you spend your actual time. You'll need to do things differently in the hours, in the minutes of your life. To make progress on stalled projects like Beatrice, you need to roll back your commitment and ask for help. To reinvigorate your passion, like Michael, you need to set boundaries and make time for your health. And if you want to get off the productivity roller coaster of doom, like me, you need to build in regular time for fun, recovery, and creativity, not just striving and accomplishment. When you do these things, you'll experience a change that goes far beyond how you spend your time. This work will impact your passions, your relationships, and your career, because how we spend our time is how we spend our lives.
Amanda, so good.
Yay!
So good. Oh, that is a great intro. That's a great intro. Thank you for reading it. By the way, Julie and Amanda, Laura pulls the chat for you. So I want you to look to see which comments really resonate with people. So how did it feel to read that?
It was great.
Yeah.
It was really good. It felt like a nice culminating experience.
Yeah, good. I'm so glad. And everybody here was really engaged in what you were saying. So now I'm turning the question over to you. What is the change you hope to see in the world with this book?
Yeah. Well, sort of two levels of change. On the one hand, I just want everybody to sort of pull the crisis out of their life and calm down enough so they can see what their great work is and get started on it, because that will enliven them so much that they will love their lives so much more immediately. And then I really do believe that long term, if more people were doing great work in the world itself would be a lot better. It would be a lot less trauma and polarization and divisiveness.
I agree. So how did it feel doing the book versus the journal? I mean, how was the process for you?
Oh my gosh, wildly different. The journals are very straightforward. It has 211 pages and 110 of them are the same because it's it's like the day after day after day.
Right.
This was completely different because this really required me to kind of walk back in my own mind and say, like, what do I really think about this?
Mm-hmm.
It was a very exploratory and illuminating experience, actually. And I'm grateful to you for helping me with it.
Well, I've always believed that writing a book is transformational for the author as well. The process you have to go through to clarify, like you said, what do you really think about it? And then also make that accessible to other people and to decide, does this matter or does that matter? Or do neither of them matter or whatever, to make those decisions is it's transformative for the author as well. And then of course what you have to go through with your own insecurities that come up for every author, every book, every time. So yeah, so I'm glad it was transformational for you. And what's your favorite chapter, Amanda?
I think my favorite chapter is chapter 6. Wait, no, 5. It's the chapter on self-expertise. Because one of my nemesi is the sort of high performance productivity people.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like we all get trapped in this like multi-step process that we feel like if we don't do it exactly right, we're not doing it right, and we could be being more productive. And so instead, self-expertise says all of those people, all those high performance productivity people out there are just your research and development arm. They're making suggestions that you can try for yourself. And that if you sort of take that perspective, you can discover a magic, almost elixir of success that works for you, and know how to shift it and change it over time as your life shifts and changes with you.
I do have to say, having read your book, that it does feel, I related with Michael in the intro. It does feel like this may be some hocus pocus. I don't know. But I see the proofs in what you accomplish and in your client stories, and you have so many great stories in the book. So you're on you guys have the same launch day, and I don't know why I didn't know that until today. That's great. That's your book besties, June 7th. Amanda, also, if you it'd be great if you could pre-order Amanda's book, because those pre-orders also help Amanda to make sure books are available on launch day, if it fits your budget, of course. And if you know someone who needs it, please share this information as well. I think everyone here knows at least one person who needs both of these books. I'm just guessing. So Julie, if you would come off mute, I would just really love to ask a couple quick questions, because both of you are in Top 3 Author Club, and we meet at 9 a.m. and 4 p.m. Monday through Friday for just an hour. And I usually see one or both of you in there whenever I'm in there. And you, for months, been showing up and doing a little bit at a time. So can you, maybe both of you, talk about the process of building a book just a little bit at a time? You want to start, Julie?
Sure. I would say I came to you with the idea. I'd been sort of workshopping the idea, but I needed the structure to actually put words on the page. And you and Laura gave me that structure with, showing up. And when I sign up for something and I pay for it, I feel an obligation to show up, honestly. And so I started showing up, and I would show up. And if you missed a day, people would be like, hey, we missed you. I'd be like, oh, I got to show up more often. And so it gave me the internal pressure that I needed to be expected. And I also learned to just put words on the page and to stop worrying about whether they were good or not good, or, but to just write. And after I found your group and joined you, I think it took like 5 months and I'd written the whole book.
It is amazing how fast. It's so funny. It's just this a little bit every day, Monday through. We don't do weekends, and most people don't show up to both of them every day. And just little by little, all of a sudden there's a book. And it seems just kind of like what Amanda said about, it feels a little bit like hocus pocus, but it actually works.
Yeah.
Did you, Amanda, did you feel, because I believe when you have writing practice, whatever it is, doesn't have to be every day, but whatever your regular writing practice is, that you get different connection to your work and inspiration than if you do just in spurts, fits and starts. What was that your experience?
Yeah, it was. And I also wrote my book very quickly. I think I started in May, and the first terrible, awful, terrible draft was done maybe middle of August. So it was sort of a frenzy. But I had tried to start writing it many times before. And what I found was I would do some, and then like a whole bunch of time would go by and I'd forget all the things I had said. And like, it wasn't, what it is? I wasn't in dialogue with myself about it in a way that was useful. When I was walking around, I wasn't pondering a small thing that I could like fix up the next time I was sitting down there. I was thinking of bigger things. This really sort of put me in it put me in dialogue with myself in a way that moved it forward. I was always having ideas. I was always thinking of stories. And then there was a time to get those things down when I was back in author club.
Yeah, I love to see that work for both of you. So June 7th, are either of you doing anything cool for launch? Anything you want everyone to know about here?
I am certain that I will do many cool things.
Listen, I understand, believe me.
But I'll be glad to share them.
So is there a way people can find out about it? Would it be through social media or through your mailing list, or?
Yeah, I would say both of those would work. Going to amandacrowell.com and just signing up on any one of the many opt-ins you'll get on the list. And then also just Instagram.
And you have a podcast.
I do have a podcast. Yes, great work. It's called Unleashing Your Great Work. So all about you.
So that's something to listen to. And Julie, what do you have planned that you would like people to attend?
I love it. I'm going to do a live event on probably a few platforms, but LinkedIn for sure. Bringing some of the people that I interviewed for the book on, and just to have conversations about big, gorgeous goals and why we should all be chasing them. And I'm super excited about it. I'm hopeful too. The world's going to allow for some in-person things, and I can do some more readings and
yes, more readings.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, I'm so proud of both of you. And the cool thing is, I know I'll see you in sprints, even though you're done, because you continue to work on everything related to the book. And we really appreciate everybody showing up for Julie and Amanda today. And just know that our next Monday night reading will feature Tara Nolan and Cindy Thomason. And that will be on which day, Laura? May
2nd.
May 2nd?
I was enraptured. I wasn't paying attention to my calendar. I was just enjoying the conversation. That should be May 2nd, yes.
Okay, so mark your calendars for May 2nd, where we'll have Tara Nolan and Cindy Thomason talking about their books. And we look forward, and then we just have one more after that, and we're down for the summer season. So we would love for everybody to show up to that if you feel inspired to do so. Thank you, everybody. Have a great night.